Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to revisit a topic that I talked about way early on when I did a revival of the Seoulite or Seoulite TV, and that is the topic of Asian America and what it really means to live in a world where there is this duality of identity, and specifically when you are dealing with racism and how you navigate a complex world, and especially now that it's more relevant when actually your life is at stake. So we just had that horrible incident where a girl, we can't even call her a girl, she was a 35-year-old woman, a professional working woman, was followed into her own home. Christina Yuna, a Korean American, she was followed into her own home, and it was a walk-up in Chinatown, so there was not even an elevator, so she actually went up 6 flights of stairs. The guy followed her into her own house, and it was like 4 a.m., and then she was brutally attacked and went to another world. Even the police were called, could not save her. And then apparently when the police were there, the attacker adopted the voice of a girl. That's how professional of an attacker he was, and said, "Oh, we don't need any help, go away." And that he hid the weapon behind a dresser, he hid underneath the bed, he tried to escape through the fire escape. Like, it was crazy. And yet they're not acknowledging that it was a hate crime. And if you look at some other previous videos, I go over hate crimes, my experience with it, whatnot. And I think in America, I have a lot of issues with the way that it is being strategically addressed by the Asian American community. And sometimes when I speak about that, people kind of think that I am unfairly attacking the Asian American community. And I am not attacking the Asian American community. I'm more of like saying, like, kind of wake up in the sense of you need to play the game a little bit better, because you're being outmaneuvered, because it is a tough game. Already you are the victim and being held powerless, and then you have to fight back not only as a wounded victim, you gotta even hit back harder. Even if you are fully whole, the game is tough. And not only that, being here in Korea and now seeing the game board from afar, I see how they're holding one hand behind your back and covering your eyes blindfolded, and then expecting you to fight, actually telling you there's no fight at all. That's how much I think the game is rigged against Asian Americans. And when I see Asian Americans even not protest, I mean, I like those Asian Americans, like, kind of even be like the deniers, the ones that are always like, "Oh, well, no, I think you're overreacting," or "Oh, no, like, I think you're just like, stop trying to," basically what they're trying to do is protect their little bubble. They don't want to be the ones kind of rocking them, what I call, well, we all know the house servants. They don't want to have their precious token positions threatened at the expense of everybody else. Super selfish. Super selfish. So with that attack, I didn't even realize it was only 2 weeks after we had that horrible subway incident with Michelle Alyssa Go being shoved into the subway, and her passing to another world. And even then the mayor shifting the attention towards mental health services of the attacker. Yes, people need help. Yes, all of these attackers are mentally suffering, but we already have programs invested in that. We already have things that are addressing that. Yes, they need reform. Yes, they need help, but how much of a budget is there for the people who are walking around now terrorized? And have you even asked yourself who those people are? If you are not willing to acknowledge that these are hate-related crimes, then did you ask yourself, okay, after these series of attacks, if you're willing to say like, okay, you can't prove that these are Asian American or Asian hate related. First of all, I'm so upset when people are just like, oh, Asian American. Please, can we redefine the term? It's Asian American or Asian heritage. You wouldn't call the mayor African, okay? So can we please stop just saying Asian? And Asian Americans, will you please defend your own place in America by saying Asian American? Even Asian Americans are saying like, oh, well, I think it's just a term that just kind of lumps everybody in. Okay, if you want to be just kind of a lumped in community, fine. So did you ask yourself, after these attacks, if you can't bring yourself to say that these were attacks targeted at Asian Americans, then you can at least say that they were targeted at people perceived as weak. And there is a general societal perception of Asian Americans or the elderly as weak. Okay, let's say you can't even do that. Then ask yourself, after these attacks, are white men and white women walking around a little bit more on edge? Probably not. Are black men and black women walking around a little bit more on edge? Probably not. Are Latina and Latino men walking around a little bit more on edge? Probably not. Are Asian American men walking around a little bit more on edge? Maybe. Are Asian American women walking around more on edge? Absolutely. Are Asian American seniors walking around more on edge? Absolutely. There you go. You have your prescription of the community that is in need of help, that has no systematic structure for help. Yes, the attackers, the murderers, the people that are also in need of help, who are in need of mental help, have resources. But what about the mental health of now this traumatized community that can't really go to work, that can't really go to the grocery store, that don't really even know if they have to pack in pepper spray, if they know how to use it? Do people now have to carry guns? Do they even know how to use these weapons? Are they allowed to shoot back? And there are even studies that show, like, even if you buy a gun, even if you train yourself a little bit, you might even actually increase the odds of dying or hurting yourself more if you have a weapon and you don't properly know how to use it. Also, do you really want to increase the risk of and the karmic consequences of, having weapons like that? We are a society for a reason. And so you are actually really ignoring a huge segment of your society just by just kind of writing them off and saying like, oh, well, we need to take care of the murderers and the attackers more than the victims here. Oh, and then the mayor just flippantly says like, okay, well, we need to take care of the mental health services of the attackers. We just let the attackers back out onto the streets. And then weeks after more attacks happen, he says, oh, we need to put more education of Asian American history into our schools. And then he does this interview where it looks like he just read the Cliff Note version of like 1888, like the Chinese Exclusion Act. Well, how's that going to help us in 2022? You are long overdue, buddy. If that's like the first time you read about it. Yes, we do need that. We needed that decades ago. Yes, you need to put it in next semester's curriculum. Yes, we do need that. Yes, it needs to go in. But how fast do you think that's going to work its way into the system? And do you think tomorrow's attacker is going to go back to school and learn it? And how much do you think learning about Chinese Americans laying down the railroad during the JP Morgan days is going to actually affect tomorrow's push into the subway tracks? Probably not going to happen. Which leads me to the main point. Fix your damn subways. Okay? So if you're not going to be able to acknowledge hate crimes, even the pain and suffering of Asian Americans, and Asian Americans yourselves, even if you're not going to be able to really be able to articulate a power position for your own community, because it's hard in general. So that's the thing. Even if all of the obstacles and barriers were taken out of the way, and even if people were to come to our side and agree, it is a really hard position to be in. This whole race thing in America is just so tough, and everything is just so tough about it. So what I think would be really good to do, especially since it is so visually, it was just tragic that Alyssa Go ended her life on the subway tracks. And it's long overdue that there are no safety screens in the New York subway system. I think it can be a win-win out of tragedy. Fix your damn subways. There's no excuse that the #1 city in the world has a subway system where it looks like still like a developing country. That subway system is disgusting. Do you know what the budget is? It is $17.5 billion a year. Billion with a B. B. Do you know the Seoul subway system is $3.5 billion a year? That's just the Seoul subway system serves 7 million people a day. New York serves 5.7 million a day. Don't tell me that you can't put in screens. Everyone's like, oh, well, New York is so large. It's like much bigger, and it's like so many people. 7 million. We're not even 24 hours a day. We compress those 7 million in a shorter period of time. We go all the way out to like Incheon International Airport. Okay, we cover a large range as well. The thing is that it should not matter whether somebody is trying to go to another universe voluntarily through the subway. They're trying to push somebody else, whether somebody accidentally goes, whether a kid just accidentally just runs, whether somebody is too drunk and falls. All of these unknowns should not have any sort of possibility of manifesting themselves in the New York subway system. So when they installed all of these safety screens, you just got rid of any possibility. Sure, people can do those things still, but in the subway system, that possibility just got eliminated. You want to do those things? You got to go somewhere else. You got to come up with an idea. You got to come up with a method somewhere else. At least in the subway system, you got it the tone, the vibe, like the atmosphere, it just made it more pleasant. I mean, where is $17.5 billion going? And I do understand in the New York metropolitan and what MTA, it doesn't just include the subways. It includes the buses and then also the tunnels and stuff. But those tunnels apparently bring in a profit margin. So actually that brings in more money, which then you could feed into probably subway improvement projects. Now, looking at that thing, and then of course a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here on the channel with a lot of the way that corruption is kind of circulated around, that to me, my friends, looks like Korean style maybe like Korean, like New York style you know what? It might outpace and outdo the way that Korean politicians do the do. Now that like Sopranos and Sex and the City is over-ish, New Yorkers, you need to get your act together. That is embarrassing. Y'all are so proud of your city. Everyone is laughing behind your backs at the subway system. Nobody rides their tush on a subway like that in a city that prides itself with that much pride. That is a nasty, nasty, nasty public transportation system. If I ever did see one, it is so disgusting. Sorry to say, not sorry to say, there is a lot of corruption. There's some there's some money falling. Money is going somewhere. I don't know if it's going to make the rats like turn into rats from mice, but something is going on. Do you know what the GDP of North Korea is? The same amount as your budget for the subways and the buses and tunnels. Yeah, North Korea, they might be starving, but some people over there like drink champagne and eat caviar. Yeah, some people don't have cars and ride bicycles, but some people drive Mercedes-Benzes. Yeah, some people like live in shacks, but they also build apartment buildings and everybody has a roof over their heads. But your subway system, like, you know, you just sit in it for like maybe like an hour. You go from Midtown to the Bronx. Like $17.5 billion, all you got is that. $17.5 billion, they got a country. They got nuclear weapons. They got like a dictator. They got a country. $17.5 billion, you can't even get safety screen doors. And you know I'm not a fan of North Korea, but $17.5 billion, you can't get safety screen doors to prevent these attacks where like, they don't care. In New York, whether you're North Korean, South Korean, Cambodian, Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, you might be going over the edge. What do you guys think? Share your comments below. And of course, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.